Bethany with Craft with Bethany, and today I'm going to teach you how to make a crochet border blanket, meaning we're going to take this beautiful fleece fabric and we're going to crochet a border around it. It's very quick and easy, it's super fun, and this tutorial is going to teach you how to do it start to finish. So you end up with a result just like this. All right, so to get started, I want to make sure that you saw that last few slides. If you didn't screenshot those, I recommend pausing, going back and screenshotting those. And then to get started, we are going to round off the edges of our blanket. So if they're not already round, grab something that's round, a cup, a bowl. I'm using a spool of ribbon here, and I'm using a rotary cutter and just rounding off those edges. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we do want to kind of round those off for our tutorial today. Okay, so this right here is called a skip stitch blade. It is a specialty blade that you can put in any rotary cutter, and I have this product linked in the description. So if you do not have a skip stitch blade, I highly recommend getting one. It makes doing this project so much easier. So obviously we use the regular blade to round off the corners, and now we're going to use the skip stitch. And what this does is we're going to run this along the edge of our blanket. Now I'm doing it a little close here in the video because I wanted to show you if you get too close and you have a fleece that kind of has a stretch to it, then it can make the holes kind of big. So I actually recommend going in a little further from the edge of the blanket than I am here. This was just kind of a test to see how close you can get. I would recommend doing at least 3/8 of an inch into the blanket, and that way you have a more stable hole and it's not going to get stretched out as we add our crochet border. But this blade is making these tiny little holes that we can add our crochet into, and it's hard to see, but you can see them right there. Okay, so next thing we want to do is get our yarn prepped for our project. Now I like to roll my skeins of yarn into yarn cakes like this, and I do that using a yarn winder. This one actually attaches to the side of my table so I can take it down when I'm not using it. Again, this is linked in the description below if you want to grab one of these. I highly recommend it. And then this is a yarn holder. This is probably one of my favorite things I invested in when I started crocheting. It magnetically attaches right here, and I just slip the yarn cake or the yarn ball onto that spool, and then when I attach it to that magnet, it just rotates right off easily. And you can pull from the outside yarn, the yarn tail, or you can pull from the inside. Some people prefer pulling from the inside. I like to pull from the outside, and it spins and it prevents there from being any tangles or knots in my yarn. And then it makes a great place to hold your hook when you're not crocheting. The hook I'm using today is 4.5 millimeters, size 7 hook, but honestly you can use any size hook that you want based on the size yarn that you're going to be crocheting with. I do not recommend going too chunky because our holes that we used to make the little skip stitch holes are not very big. So don't go too chunky. And what we're going to do is start with finding any corner. We want to find that center hole. So this is the center hole of this corner, or close to it. I want to start one over from that. So because I'm right-handed, I'm starting one over to the left. If you're right-handed, you want to start one over to the right, and you're just going to slip your yarn right through that hole on your hook, and we're going to do a slip stitch. I know I'm a little off camera here. Sorry guys. This is my first time filming a crochet video, so it took some getting used to, so bear with me, but you're just going to do a simple slip stitch, and then we're going to do a chain 1. Okay, now when I go through these stitches, I'm assuming that you know what these are, so I'm not going to dive into these super deep. If you're not familiar with the stitch that I'm showing in this video, I recommend that you pause and find a video that does show you how to do that simple stitch, and then come back to this tutorial. So again, I did in the next stitch, I did a single crochet, just like this. Yarn over and finish that single crochet, and then I do a chain 1. A single crochet in the next hole and a chain 1. You're going to do that all the way around, and when you get to a corner, as I'm approaching a corner right here, and I'm going to pause and show you what this edge looks like before we go to the corner. And what we're doing here is building our foundation stitches to build our border off of. So you're going to have a row of V stitches all the way across the top, and see how they're going in all these holes. So it's a single crochet and a chain 1 in each one of these. Okay, now when you get to the next corner, you want to find that center stitch, that center hole, I guess we can say, and you're going to do that single crochet chain 1 3 times in that one hole. So it's going to be a lot in that one hole, but it's going to allow our border to be able to gradually go across that curve and not look bunched up. So it's going to feel a little bunched up here, but we are going to do 3 single crochet chain 1s in that center hole on each corner. So you want to make sure that you do this as you go around each corner of your blanket. And then after you do the 3, you're going to move on to the next hole and do a single crochet, a chain 1, and keep going around. See, there's a little bit of a bulk there, but it's going to smooth out when we add our border. All right, we're going to continue on here with our single crochet and our chain 1, building our foundation stitches all the way around. And as you are watching this tutorial, you'll see that those holes are getting bigger as I stitch around. This is again why I said don't cut the hole so close to the edge like I did. Okay, to join our ends, once we get back to the beginning, we are going to single crochet into that first V. And this is how we're going to join our row all the way around. And then we're going to chain 3. So the pattern that we're creating here is a shell stitch. So we're going to chain 3, a yarn over, and do a double crochet. 1, 2. All right, so that's the beginning of our shell stitch. The next part of our shell stitch is a chain 2, and then 2 more double crochets. All of this is going in that same first V that we just did that single crochet into. So there's 1 double crochet and there's the second. So it is a lot in this one single stitch, but this is creating that shell. So we've got the first 2, and the second 2, and that chain 2 space in the middle. That chain 2 space is critical, and you can see it kind of creates this seashell kind of shape. And then we're going to skip 3 stitches, so 3 V's, 1, 2, 3, and then in the 4th V we're going to do this same pattern, but instead of doing the 3 chains, that was just to get that first one started. We're now going to do 2 double crochets. So there's the first one I'm getting started. So we're skipping right over those 3 stitches. There's the first double crochet, then there's the second double crochet, and then we're going to chain 2. This is creating that little space. And then we're going to do 2 more double crochets. Here's the first one. And then there is the second one. And that is the pattern for creating that shell shape. So now we have 2 shells. We're going to repeat this pattern all the way around for this first row of our border. So again, skipping 3, go into the 4th one, 2 double crochets. There's the first double crochet, yarn over, second double crochet. Then we're going to chain 2. And then 2 more double crochets, all in that same stitch. There we go. I like to pause and make sure that what I'm doing is matching up with, the pattern. So make sure that you take a second to look at your stitches and you're getting the same look. Skip 3, go to the 4th one. We're going to do that same pattern. 2 double crochets. Chain 2. And 2 more double crochets. At the beginning of this tutorial, I wrote out the patterns. So if you did not take a screenshot, I recommend that you take a screenshot of those 3 slides at the beginning so you can reference them as you are stitching around. So there's our 2 double crochets, our chain 2, and our 2 double crochets. It's creating that shell shape, and those two chains are so important to get that little peak and that space between our double crochets. All right, so now you're going to do this all the way around, and when you get back to the end and back to where we started, these shells, I'll meet you back here to show you how to join them together. All right, this is looking so good. This is the first row. Now you can do one row and stop, and we can join these together and you can be done, or you can keep adding on to it like we're gonna do it in this tutorial. So our next part, we wanna join the last shell with the first shell, and then we wanna start a second row. So the best way to do that is we're going to find that first space right there, and we're going to slip stitch and join those two shells. That's completing that row, that first row. Then we're gonna slip stitch into that next space, that next V in that shell, and we're working our way over to that chain 2 space in the first shell. Remember how I said that chain 2 space is so important? So I've slip stitched over into that chain 2 space. And now I want to start my second row of shells. We want our shells to stack on top of each other. So we're going to be working in that chain 2 space. So the first thing I'm going to do is chain 3, yarn over, and do a double crochet. This is how the first shell of each row is going to start. Then we're going to chain 2, and then do 2 more double crochets. All of this is being worked into that chain 2 space of the shell in the first row, right below it. So there's my second double crochet, and I'm going to pause and let you see what I'm talking about. So see how I've got a shell stacked on top of the previous shell? It looks beautiful. So now we're going to, instead of skipping stitches, we're going to skip straight over to the next shell. So this is the next shell, and that's the chain 2 space. You want to make sure you're always crocheting into the chain 2 space so that your seashells that you're stitching are stacked perfectly on top of each other. So we're going to do a double crochet, another double crochet, a chain 2, a double crochet, another double crochet, all in that chain 2 space of the shell in the first row below it. So now I've got 2 shells stacked on top of 2 shells. You're going to continue this pattern all the way around, making sure that you're adding 2 double crochets, a chain 2, and a 2 double crochets, all in that chain 2 space of the previous shell in the first row. So right there is my chain 2 space. And then I'm going to do that same pattern, 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets, all in that chain 2 space. There we go, another shell stacked on top of the previous shell from the previous row. You're going to continue this pattern all the way around and meet me back at the other end when you are 1 shell away from connecting. All right, so we have gone all the way around. It looks so good. Again, you could stop here and be done, but we're going to add a 3rd row, and in this 3rd row, we're going to do a slightly different stitch. We're going to alter our pattern. So again, like the previous time, we're going to slip stitch into that first space of the first shell, and then we're going to slip stitch over to that chain 2 space. That's where we want to start our 3rd row. So this is just like we did in the 2nd row. So now that I'm in that chain 2 space, our pattern is going to alter just a little bit. This time we're going to do a chain 3, a yarn over double crochet, and then we're going to chain 3. Instead of chaining 2, we're going to chain 3 this time. We're going to add what's called a picot at the point of our shell to create a fun little point for this last row of our border. So we've got our chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and in that first chain, that first one that we did, we're going to go back into it and do a single crochet. So now we have this like little ball, like little bundle here right above our first two double crochets. And then we're going to double crochet 2 more times back into that chain 2 space to finish out our shell pattern. So there's one, and then there's the second double crochet. And that is our new pattern for this final row. So see how it's got this little peak at the top? So we got 2 double crochets, 2 double crochets, and in that chain 2 space, we added that extra single crochet. So instead of being so rounded over, we have more of a point. Kind of looks more like a crown. And I really like this as a fun little add-on. Now you do not have to do this. You could do the previous pattern that we've been doing, or you can do this as a fun little way to add some flair to the edge of your border. So again, in that chain 2 space of the next shell, we're going to double crochet, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then in that first chain we are going to do a single crochet, and then we're going to do a double crochet back into that chain 2 space, and another double crochet. And we have finished another shell with a picot point. So we're going to continue this pattern all the way around our blanket to finish our border. So I will meet you back over on the other end, and you can see how to finish up the blanket and tie it off. And I hope you are really enjoying this pattern and learning something new, as we are having some fun with adding some crochet to a fleece blanket. That looks so nice. Look at this. So we're going to continue to work our way around. We've got our fun little points on this one, and I'll meet you back at this end. All right. This is looking so pretty. And now we're going to finish this off by doing a simple stitch through, a slip stitch here. I like to slip stitch through a couple times across the top here just to really secure it. And then you're going to pull your end and tie it off, and then you can weave in your yarn tails however you prefer to do so. So you're just going to pull that through that slip stitch and kind of knot it off, and then you can weave those tails in. Your ending tail and your beginning tail from where we started should be right below it, right along the fleece, and then you're good to go. All right, if you enjoyed this YouTube tutorial and you learned something new, be sure to subscribe to my channel, like this video, share it with a friend, and tag me in your finished blanket.